Good afternoon and welcome to Bradenton Kiwanis. I am your club president, Heather Doyle. We had some technical difficulties initially, so we're going to go ahead and roll right into our program without our typical fellowship time. At this point in time, I would like to welcome the very lovely Diana to welcome our guests.
First, I'd like to thank Bill and Angie for taking over the registration desk last week when we were all away. We have 4 members from the Manatee County government who are going to speak today, but I'm just going to run through their names because I'm sure they'll get a better introduction later. Ogden Clark, where are you, Ogden? Stand up. Hello. Let's give him a warm Kiwanis welcome here. Simone Patterson. Hi, hello. Xavier Colin. Welcome. Jeffrey and Ryan. And also from Manatee County government, we have Debbie DeLeon. Well, gee whiz. That's all the visitors. The rest are senior members. So, it's with a sad heart and lots of thought and consideration. After 17 years in this wonderful club, I am going to retire today. I have so many health problems now, it's getting ridiculous. So I need to just concentrate on getting my health back. So I'm going to miss every one of you because I truly love you all. You're your family to me. So I'll come visit you sometimes, okay?
Diana, stay right here.
Okay.
I think there's probably very few people more deserving of that standing ovation. Well deserved.
Thank you.
And I think it would only be appropriate to give to you our Kiwanis Golden Rule.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh. Thank you. Appreciate it so much.
Now we are gonna have you back. So
Okay.
this is not
Okay.
goodbye. This is just
I have
farewell for
a
now.
shirt for her too that I especially had made just for you.
Oh, really?
Message up there. Restart later.
And now we have Linda Agresa, who has been working day and night for our signature event this Saturday. Are you ready? Born ready.
I've been
Born ready.
4 weeks ago.
All right, come on up and give us your announcement.
Okay. I'll be brief, which is very rare. I just want to thank Bill and Angie again for the T-shirts. They came in last week, and they're in the back. So please, please, before you leave today, take your Christmas in August T-shirt. Bill, Angie, thank you again so very much. We are moving right along, and we are very ready. Madam President, I am so excited. Just got off the phone with Nick Long. We're going to open up Thursday afternoon this year. So Gretchen, I want Gretchen to be happy. We're going to put all the school supplies in the visitors' locker room. So we're ready to go on Friday morning. Everything's already been sorted. We're going to do all the backpacks there, and then they'll be distributed by the store. So everything is ready to go. All the vendors are on board, and all the Kiwanians will be there. And I just want to, again, thank all of you for helping this year with our signature Christmas in August. Is going to be such a wonderful success.
So Friday at 9:30.
Friday 9:30, be there 9:30. We're going to work till we get done, and then Saturday morning, I believe we said what, 6:30? 6:30. So everybody rise and shine. Love you. Thank you.
Need any more supplies? Do we have enough supplies?
We're good. Neil Unruh just asked me, I need index cards. Gretchen's got everything else. A couple of 3-ring binders, maybe 53 ring binders and index cards. And that's it. If we run short of backpacks, I'll run out and get some. Lisa?
We've got a whole bunch of supplies coming from Michael Saunders.
And where's Roland? Roland, have you picked those up yet this morning or no? Okay. So, to answer your question, I think we're good. And
Yes, Dave Schrott.
on Saturday, where the volunteer entry was last year, will be open in the back. But on Friday, I've got Nick to open on Thursday and Friday the gate that is next to the big parking lot, next to the visitors where we had one of the food buses last year. That gate will be open right next to the visitors' locker room so that we can just get stuff in there. On 9th. Thanks. On Saturday, the gate will be the northeast. Oh,
We'll show you a map.
okay. And make sure that you, if you don't have a map or have seen a map, Ray, I think you might have a few. Do you have? Okay. All right. So anyway, be there Friday. Everything will be answered to you Friday by 12 o'clock midnight.
Volunteer forms.
Volunteer. Christy, I can't see with the light. I only have one eye. Okay.
She's here.
The forms, sweetheart. Volunteer forms, Mr. Edwards?
Drop him off to Diana.
Drop them off to Diana. They're in the back. Everybody else okay? Thanks, and I love you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. What's amazing is, with probably 2 exceptions, every aspect of this club, from our signature projects to running our meetings, is all volunteers. Please give yourselves a round of applause. It's amazing what we do. All volunteers, with 2 exceptions. There will be a specially called board meeting. Members of the board, we do need to vote on a few matters. I promise I won't keep you more than 10 minutes after the meeting. We just have a few things to vote on. Should be quick and easy and painless if you could stay behind for 10 minutes. And August 11th, food packaging event. We're going to be packaging 80,000 meals. That's sponsored by all of our partners, and it's run by Manatee Sunrise Kiwanis. If you're interested in that, I've got an email address that you can RSVP to. Without further ado, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you Xavier Colon. And he is with Manatee County Neighborhood Services. I'm going to allow him to introduce himself as well as the members of his team today.
Hi, thank you guys for all coming. One thing, I'm also a member of the North Manatee Kiwanis Club, so there's like 3 non-Kiwanian people here, but we'll not talk about that. We have a great presentation. We've been going around the county since, I believe, June, May or June, and we've been doing a visioning project with our M3 group, and the amazing people, they're going to introduce themselves as they're doing their parts, but they're from different parts of the county, and we begin our introduction with Mr. Ogden Clark. There we go.
Well, hello, good afternoon. As Xavier said, my name is Ogden Clark, and I work with Manatee County government in their Neighborhood Services Department. And it's my role, my job kind of, to foster civic engagement, get people involved in community planning, and to kind of take ownership in their neighborhood. So that's kind of why I'm involved. And today we're going to be talking about long-term visioning. We're going to be talking about what your vision of Manatee County is 20 years down the road. You may have some things that are right in your neighborhood right now that you want to see happen right now. But today we're going to be talking about long-term vision, 20 years out. And to talk about why that's important, it's because you want to have a plan for where you're headed. Because if you don't have a plan, you might end up someplace that you don't want to be, right? So this map is from 1968, and I could spend a lot of time talking about this map, and there's some cool things to kind of point out. The key thing is that you see a lot of roads on there. Some of those roads have been built, and some of them have not. Some of them will never get built. Some of them, like the Fort Hamer Bridge, was just completed recently. So that's something that was on the books for a long time. But the vision, even back in the 1960s, was there to say we need to be able to move people around the county. We need to be able to move people from north of the river to south of the river. And if you look at that road plan, you can see that there was kind of almost like a beltway to go all the way around the county at that time. That was the vision, to be able to move people. Now that vision looks a little bit different, right? Because we know what things look like now in 2018. But that being said, a lot of things that we're going to be talking about today were things that have happened in the county over the last 20 years. So I want to look at 20 years ago and things that we've changed and that were part of our vision. And then want to look to the future. We want to hear from you today. Talk about what you want to see for the next 20 years. So I mentioned the Fort Hamer Bridge. That's an example of something that's happened in the last 20 years that has really kind of changed the dynamic and traffic here in Manatee County. We've also had the vision back early in the 60s to say that we need to be smart about how we manage our water. So our dam was another thing that was a big vision, as well as our sewer system, water management, waste management at our Lena Road landfill. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. And then those innovative changes that have happened, we've become more energy efficient. Just up the road here, we have a chiller plant. We use that to cool our library and some of the buildings downtown. And that's just one way that we're more energy efficient. Another thing is our libraries. They've changed a lot over the last 20 years. They were all, for the most part, in different buildings, except for the one that was downtown. They have changed, grown, continue to be serving our community. Same thing with our landfill. Now we trap gases that are coming out of that landfill. We use that to power the machinery there, and that's a savings for taxpayers. Our park system has changed a lot. If you remember 20 years ago, even 15 years ago, some of the parks that we have did not exist. And you can see that there's a huge economic driver for us too. We have a lot of people that come and visit us. Our transit system as well has changed. And so now I want to draw your attention just to some facts, some things to kind of consider as you look to the future. And as we talk today and discuss planning for the future, these are things that really you should keep in your mind. Probably doesn't come as a surprise to anybody that Manatee County is going to grow. We're going to continue to grow. We're going to see growth. And these numbers come from University of Florida, but they're projecting that we're going to be over 500,000 people by the year 2045 on that slide. And where does that growth happen? In this slide, you can see in 1998, if you look east of I-75, it kind of just looks like big land. And that's mostly agricultural. And then as you turn to 2018, we're looking at lots of cul-de-sacs. You can see them east of I-75. You can see where that development started to happen. And then as you fast forward to 2038, 20 years down the road, we see all those blue boxes. That's where development has been approved and where it can begin today. So that's where you're going to see a lot of growth. That's predominantly east of I-75. So thinking about those things, consider those things as you start to talk today and share your ideas. A couple other things that I wanted to draw attention to. This is a big one. The households are going to continue. We're going to see growth, and we continue to believe that we'll see households over the age of 65 continue to grow as well. And what does that mean for our area? What does that mean for our services? What does that mean for homeownership? Things of that nature. And then even more importantly, the makeup of our population, the makeup of the people that are going to be living here. If we follow the national trend and we look at these numbers from Woods and Pool, you can see that Manatee County's makeup in 2050 is going to be very different from what it is now. That being said, what does that mean about our parks, our recreation, the services we provide at our libraries here within Manatee County? What can we do to address this shift and this change in population? And then I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jeff Ryan, who's going to talk a little bit about economics and jobs, economy, policy.
Hey y'all, how's it going? Can you hear me in the back? Okay, everything good? I'll stick with the microphone for now. So my name is Jeff Ryan. I'm with the Department of Redevelopment and Economic Opportunity, and I promise I'm not going to be doom and gloom, but it gets kind of depressing. So here's a warning. All right. All right. So let's start things off. Right. So James Baldwin once said, "Anyone who has ever struggled with poverty knows how extremely expensive it is to be poor." And I think after my depressing slides, we'll figure out why that's true. First things first, good news. So in 2000, we had an unemployment rate of 1.9%. Then the Great Recession hit, and our unemployment rate in the county spiked to 8%. The good news is that it's actually gone down to 3.4%. So that means that we've had a recovery, but it's been slow. However, the real median income has actually consistently fallen. Now, a lot of times you'll see data that's saying, oh, you see the real median income has actually increased. But once you adjust for inflation, you actually see consistent declines in the amount of money that we make, which means that even though our paycheck seems like it can be maybe bigger, it doesn't go as far as it used to. Poverty rates in Manatee County follows a similar trajectory as our unemployment, where it starts out fairly decent at 10% in 2000, the Great Recession hit, and then poverty increased significantly in the county, and it's starting to decline, which is great, but we still got a little ways to go. Homeownership, unfortunately, follows, again, a similar trajectory as the median income, where you actually see declining rates of home ownership in the county. This is particularly problematic when you look at affordable housing. The amount of folks in the county who paid over 35% of their income has not improved since the Great Recession. 40%, almost half of all county residents, are spending over 35% of their income on rent, which is a pretty substantially high number. Don't feel too bad about this housing affordability crisis because this is happening nationally. A recent study recently showed that there isn't a single county in the country, and I say this as a Kansan who comes from a small town of 4,000, the kind of community where you're like, oh, I'm sure they got affordable housing. No, even my dear old Marshall County, Kansas, a family with both parents working minimum wage jobs cannot afford a 2-bedroom house on their income. So the affordable housing crisis is a nationwide problem, but in Manatee County, it's particularly acute when almost half of our population is spending more than 35%. On the flip side, though, education attainment is up. Now, since 2000, we've actually increased by about 7% in the amount of people who are graduating and amount of people in the county who have bachelor's degrees or higher, which is good. However, someone could probably write a PhD thesis talking about examining the relationship between how can you have increased educational attainment, but you aren't seeing gains in real median income, or you're seeing other issues of affordability. There's a lot of things that are connected here that, I don't think probably the smartest people in the world are qualified to really give exact explanations, but we are where we are. Now, a lot of times people talk about inflation. Since 1997, we've had a 52% inflation rate. What this basically means is that a $20 purchase in 1997 would cost about $30 now. Likewise, a $20 purchase in 1997 would cost about $50 by 2037. So again, thinking about that quote, how expensive it is to be poor. If you're on a limited income or on a fixed income, you only get X amount of dollars, and that $100 can't buy nearly as much as it used to. It gets more and more difficult to budget accordingly. So inflation is a major concern. And again, I'm really sorry about the doom and gloom. So looking at minimum wage, if you look at minimum wage rates in in Manatee County, we've actually seen a consistent increase in minimum wage. However, these nerds at MIT, I don't know if you guys heard about it, it's a pretty good school, I guess. What they calculate to be the living wage for Manatee County is about $11, and our current minimum wage is about $4 short of that. The good news is, though, is that we will reach that $11 minimum wage, that living wage, by 2037. The bad news is that the living wage will also increase by then till it's about $14. So basically what I'm saying is that as of right now, in the current trajectory at which we're paying workers, at least the minimum wage, it's not really matching what's needed to be able to at least pay for the bare minimum. Now, here's where, I'm sorry, technological change. Okay, so we've all probably heard about technological change in artificial intelligence and stuff like that, right? We've all heard about robots and robots driving cars and truck drivers. But a lot of us don't really think about how we've interacted with artificial intelligence. How many people here use QuickBooks? Right? You've interacted with artificial intelligence. How many people have used online banking? Exactly, right? We are already in the 21st century. It's not this near future thing that hasn't yet arrived. We're there. We're already in an era of artificial intelligence and automation. And if you look at what researchers are indicating, the most likely industries to be replaced by machines or automated, it isn't just the poor auto manufacturers in Detroit. It's clerks, it's bookkeepers. Those QuickBooks, that used to be a person's job. Now it's just a software that you don't even have to download the software. You just go into Chrome and it does it for you. You go on your browser, right? And then what's crazier is if you look at technology and technological change, it's not just about that. Even stuff like construction jobs. Surely construction jobs can never be replaced, right? Well, that's not true. In Switzerland, they recently built like a 4-bedroom house in 24 hours that's 3D printed, all built to European standard codes. Or if you look at automation and the way that technology is evolving, they're able to do 42-unit housing units, with just 4 guys constructing it in 10 weeks. These are pretty fast construction times. So even your staples of employment, you think, oh, this is never going to be replaced by machines. That's not necessarily true. Now, I'm really not trying to be all doom and gloom about this. I really think that Manatee County's best days are just a sunset away. But my only request is that if we're going to prepare for the 21st century economy, we have to get rid of this idea that we have to get rid of these 20th century notions. We have to accept we're already here in the future. Like, we're already here in the 21st century, and we need to get real and maybe start thinking about how can we set up our workforce and our future workforce to be able to adapt and to be able to thrive in the new economy. Thank you. So I'm going to be followed by Simone, who's going to talk about hopefully not as depressing stuff. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, hopefully I'm not as depressing as Jeff, but much love to you. I'm going to be talking about infrastructure, mainly your roads, traffic, things like that. So let's go ahead and get started. 20 years ago, believe it or not, 1998, SUVs were all the rage. Electric vehicles weren't as mainstream as they are now. And believe it or not, the Segway back then was pegged to be the transportation innovation for this time. Thankfully, with our transportation accomplishments back then, we did a lot of widening of roads, expansion of roadways to make it easier for people to get to and from different places in the county. Looking forward to today, thankfully people are not getting around on segways. That would be super dangerous, I would think. But we are moving towards, especially municipalities, moving more so to placing people over the car. And what that means is that many jurisdictions are adopting such policies such as complete streets, which makes it so that way a street is available and accessible to anyone, not just a person driving a car. So making sure you have bike lanes for cyclists, making sure you have wide enough sidewalks for people of all mobilities to be able to get around the town safely. Additionally, one thing that's really important that Manatee County has adopted is safe routes to school. And what that means is that making sure that our school children can get from their homes to their nearest school using a sidewalk and other safety methods as well. An interesting thing to note is that the American Society of Civil Engineers rates America's infrastructure as a D+. We all know a D+ is not a good grade, but it's something that we are aware of now. So as a nation, we need to maybe start trying to look at how do we improve our infrastructure now, because if we don't do something about it today, it's only going to get worse. So looking at 2018, the Fort Hamer Bridge, just like what Ogden talked about earlier, that project was actually something that's been on the books for 100 years. And it was just open, as we know, last year after the hurricane. So that's why visioning is so important and why we should really look at, why we're here today. We're going to ask you guys, what do you want Manatee County to look like in 20 years? Looking at transportation in the future, there are some key things, especially in our discussion areas, that we want to ask you about, such as density. Many people think, they don't want high rises like on Miami Beach. But what is too high? What are some things that citizens are looking for? One of the theories is if you build up versus out and avoid the sprawl, it might lessen the traffic because you have access to get to all the different amenities that you would like a movie theater, restaurants, other things like that where you might be able to hop on a bike or just walk to versus hopping in your car and clogging up roads. Another thing that we were thinking about as far as just development goes is also shifting our mobility strategies here. Making sure if you're trying to get out to the beach, again, instead of using a car, maybe adopting a water taxi system where you have a park and ride. If you're trying to get to some of the popular places in the county, just park and go. Moving from transportation, looking at kind of our infrastructure such as water, sewer lines, things like that is not really a popular topic, but it's a big deal when it doesn't work right. So it's something that we definitely wanted to address. Our water system, thankfully, we're okay until 2034. On this slide here, you may be wondering, with like 500,000 people coming into Manatee County, how come our water usage isn't actually increasing? Well, Manatee County is a jewel, and when it comes to conservation of our water supply, we use rain barrels here. A lot of people are definitely big on conserving the water system. And then also the different technologies that we employ in our homes now also helps with conservation efforts. So that's why it's actually going down, but we need to continue those efforts in order to make sure we don't have a water crisis that, say, for instance, California is experiencing. Our sewer lines, same thing, but with the development going out in the East County, we need to definitely think about what kind of plants we may need out on the east side of the city. Another interesting thing, we kind of talked about the landfill already, but we have a lifespan until 2042. So that doesn't seem like that's a long time away, but when it comes to permitting a landfill, that can take upwards of like 10 to 15 years. So we need to at least start thinking about where's that next landfill going to go. And this is just an interesting tidbit. With Hurricane Irma, it produced 456,000 cubic yards of debris. So that doesn't include all the shrubbery and things that were picked up on the side of the road. This is just the stuff that maybe went bad in your refrigerator and other household garbage. It doesn't include all those other things. So if we had another Hurricane Irma or worse, we may be in a really bad predicament. And I'm just going to fast forward through these slides here because I'd rather get to hear you guys talk and have ideas from you all. But basically, these next few slides kind of just go over, based on the population growth and what's happening out east, right now, county facilities are centered in downtown Bradenton. One of the things that we were thinking about as county government was that if something happens out east, it's going to take us about 30 minutes, whether it's like a pipeline burst or something like that, where it's going to take us 30 minutes to get out there, where we were thinking like maybe we can have satellite offices in different parts of the county to address the needs of those localized areas. So this just shows you basically with the population growth, how the center point of our county as far as residents go is shifting more towards I-75. And the one thing to point out on the slide here is that the yellow boxes just show again where development has been approved, where it's going to happen, and again, thinking about services, county services, and even as employers and with nonprofits, maybe that's going to be another service area for you to maybe even look into. So to talk about the fun stuff in life, libraries, parks, natural resources, I'm going to turn it over to Xavier.
Hi, Xavier Cologne again, but with quality of life, we're going to focus on libraries and parks in this presentation, but this building we're in is a great example of quality of life, the Manatee Performing Arts Center. You guys were instrumental in this building, and it's a bastion of arts in the area. So when you think of quality life, they're actually going to be giving out papers. It's a little quiz at the end of this presentation where we just want to hear from you guys and get your feedback. But really, when you're thinking quality of life, we're going to talk about libraries and parks, but there's more to it than just that. So as you can see, Charles Kennedy, quality of life actually begins at home. It's very close to the community, and with the libraries 20 years ago, they're very different than what they are now. If you see in this, it's kind of far away, but most of the locations were in different parts. I used to go to Rocky Bluff all the time, and that was on a strip mall. And now we have buildings for them, and Braden River, which has a beautiful building, is busting at the seams already. Normally the belief of with technology that libraries are dying, it's actually the opposite. Technology has bolstered our numbers. The library system alone has over 800,000 visits, and it's growing every year. And what's amazing is our library has also saved residents over $7 million in its services. These are just a list of awards that our library has been recognized nationally and across the state. It's kind of amazing, and they won even a couple more awards after we made this presentation. So 2038, what we have to think about is the new facilities from half-cent sales tax. Our population's growing, our locations are going to need to have to go along with it. And the aging population, such as we do a lot of amazing programs, Tech Buddies, all these kind of things to help those trying to learn technology or trying to get up to speed with how quickly we've been developing, and also the amount of young families in the growing Hispanic population. So these are some of the things we want you to think about with the future. How are we going to change the libraries? Just remember, 20 years ago, we'd gotten off the card system and finally gotten our first computer. And now, if you go in those buildings, most of it's computers. So what we also want to talk about is funding concerns. Right now, every dollar that's invested into the libraries actually gives an economic benefit of $10.18. So that's pretty great, tenfold increase in your buck. And versus Manatee County, where we spend $17 per capita, the average Florida library system gets $26 per capita. So that's kind of a sharp divide. And when it comes to square footage, as you can see real quickly, I'm not going to go into the numbers because we do want to hear your feedback, but there's kind of a big difference with the county versus the state average and our neighbors to the south, Sarasota. Parks and natural resources are very important because people come for our beaches, people come for our parks, our green space. It's what draws people to this area. They love it, and then they wind up moving here. So 1998 was a big year because it was beach renourishment. The beaches that you see now were not always how those beaches look. They're actually very beautiful. And Emerson and Duet, which were our big nature draws, we're only getting about 1,000 visitors a year. That's not that much. In GT Bray, if you went there and you wanted to enjoy a baseball game, there was no natural shade, so you were burning in this heat. Now we have 70 parks, 28,000 acres, 68 miles of trails, and that's growing every year. If you listen to any presentation by Charlie Hunsicker, there's big things in the future for our nature trails. And we have over 500,000 visitors. Robinson Preserve with the Nest, this is a big draw to this county. I know people who come from around the state just to see our natural resources. Accomplishments, we have our master plan. It's a beautiful, long document online. But also we have the Nest Learning Center, and we also have facilities around the county that we beautified, put signs, made it a little bit easier to traverse. Now we got to think of the future. This plan we made right now is only going to cover us so far. We need to start planning for the next 30 years, such as a new plan. We need new parks and pools. Today Lincoln Park was just discussed, but the more pools, they want one in East County, Hidden Harbor, and Lincoln Park. John Marble off of 70 is getting renovated. They want to improve the athletic fields and provide more natural shade, and also, very important, air conditioning in the buildings that are on those land, and environmental horticulture, which we have amazing programs in the county as well. Some of the concerns that they have is that we will, by 2038, we'll spend $100 million, which is a lot of money, on improving these assets. But if you compare it to some of the neighbors that we have, it's kind of a sharp divide, such as if you look at the list, Sarasota has 52% of conserved area, Manatee County is 12.5%, and the state average is 30%. Now, we gave you a lot of stats. We did this quickly. Normally our feedback is a 2-hour thing where our presentation takes an hour, and then we do about an hour feedback. So sorry, we know we hit you with a lot of numbers real quick, but the reason we're doing this is a great quote from Hamilton, the musical. What is a legacy? It's planting seeds in a garden you never get to see. And what we did is we gave you those sheets of paper. They're very important because we love when people give us feedback. We love when everybody tells us they're impassioned pleas for things, but when it's written down, we can put it in public record. And we're going to be doing these presentations till November, in which then we make a long report on what we recommend. And your feedback gives us credibility to those recommendations that we give to the board, which we have some members in the audience. So we're just, we want you guys to think about these different parts: infrastructure, jobs in the economy, housing, and quality of life. Normally we give about a 5-minute gap, but just because of time, we know you guys have things to do. We want you to get out of here in a timely fashion. So please, as we're talking and writing down, I know that Heather is going to point out for any of you have any questions. So I'm going to give the floor to Heather, but please write down your feedback. What you tell us is wonderful, but when you write it down, it helps us have public record as well.
I think we have a couple minutes for questions. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, Mr. Johnson.
The population of the county that you had at first, is that year-round residents or does that count as seasonal?
Yeah, so what you asked was the number that we showed, which was over 500 million, does that count permanent residents or the seasonal? That's actually permanent. So that means that that number is going to probably bolster by another maybe 150 seasonally when we get our snowbirds. Well, what we call snowbirds, but our seasonal travelers. Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I talked about road mostly on the outskirts of the city.
Yeah. I can, so the question was about the Cortez. Lake Flores, I believe is what you're talking about, and how that's going to increase traffic. Well, with this visioning, that's what we want your feedback, because we know we hear a lot about that, people always screaming when we have new plan development, and how that's going to grow population, traffic, and all that. But that's what we want to hear from you guys as well, is how you feel about those things. It helps us prioritize our future. I wish I could help you. I'm not a public works expert on that, but I know that they do have these things planned out in FDOT with Cortez and such.
Yes.
Well, that kind of segues into the question about, I know that it's not popular, but you got to get a fix fixed.
Well, that's one of our things with it. This is a visioning project. We're trying to get that feedback because, normally when you have a meeting, what you get is a lot of the naysayers and such. When FDOT, and I believe FDOT really does those are their bridges, or, and the county, I think, does Cortez, or is that FDOT?
Oh, heck no.
Yeah.
No, but the Cortez Bridge has been proposed by FDOT as a fixed span bridge. That has been their selected alternative. Sorry, I just thought I might.
No, thank you.
very
Thank you.
helpful.
Yes.
The Manatee Avenue Bridge will still only be 2 lanes, right? Or is it 4 lanes?
I think that there's definitely a good idea for a program. Well, I want to thank Xavier and his team so much for being here. I'm here to give you the... Yes, go ahead.
One of the most important things is we gave this presentation. It was really quick, but we are willing to we're doing presentations to November. We're adding things to our calendar every week. So if you I know that some of you are also involved with other organizations or groups, or even your work, what you work with, but please make sure to tell them we have our cards we can give to you, and we can plan presentations for your neighborhood, for your other groups, for anything. We're just trying to get as much feedback as possible so that when we make those report and recommendations and, for the next year, we can have as much feedback as possible, which is very important. So please contact us. We will be doing this all the way till November, so we're always willing to do a presentation for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And it is my great pleasure to give Mr. Colon and his team the Kiwanis Golden Rule. Just here to help you measure your future success and undoubtedly the success of Manatee County. Thank you all so very much. It was unbelievably informative and helpful. We are going to be having a specially called board meeting right now. If you could just meet at this front table here, I promise I won't take more than 10 minutes of your time. With that, we look forward to seeing everybody on Saturday. Grab one of your shirts on the way out. Thank you so much to Linda Agresta and her team. Thank you to Bill Edwards and Angie for the shirts. Have a wonderful week. Please remember your volunteer forms in the back. And we are adjourned.